Hello everyone, once again. I hope that you enjoyed the first video that I put out. So here's the second one. And I'm going to try and target this at chapter 5 of the text coming from, I think, 1980 by Gerard Genette. And his date's 1930 to 2018. He was a French literary theorist. Begins chapter 5 on page 212. I'd like us to consider pages 212 to 27 in the first segment that we actually think about. So this chapter is called Voice, and that's Genette's term for the narrating presence within any particular story. So I have a set of 6 questions, and I will make some observations, and I will leave you with some questions if you could respond to these as indicated in the accompanying email. So I'll begin with a question, and the first question is this. Question number 1. What are the automatic associations that Genette argues readers assume with respect to 3 terms? Narrator, story, and recipient. Second question. What term does Genette use to describe narratives that recount other acts of narration? So as the chapter unfolds, Genette considers narration, the act of narration, in 3 different aspects. The first one is time, beginning on page 215. The second one is narrative level, which begins on page 227, and that will be included in the next video. And the third is personae, or the characters within, or the agents within a particular narrative, beginning on page 243. So today we'll consider time in particular, and the remaining questions will be targeted towards that. So we've spoken about time already, and we've really addressed time through Ricoeur and Heidegger in terms of what time means, what is the philosophy of time. But here I think Genette is actually thinking about time in terms of form, which as musicians, this is something that we understand, I think, pretty much every time we listen or we play or sing. He says that in terms of narrative, time is essential. I think Roland Barthes also made this point. Space also is important, but space is less crucial. I suppose this is because wherever we come from, we are bound by a condition of mortality, so that time is the most important thing for us. And this is signalled in the course of literary expression through tense. And of course, even the writing of history deals with perhaps events in the past tense. So here is question number 3. Genette identifies 4 principal perspectives for the organisation of time within narrative. What are these? So these are single word terms. Can you identify them and tell me what you think they are? He says that the 4th of these is the most complex. In other words, it involves a mixture of past and present, which are continually modifying the nature of the narrator or the subject who is trying to respond to them. He says that this is particularly intricate in the context of 18th century narrative articulation, particularly a narrative type called the epistolary novel. What is an epistolary novel? So this is my question number 4. What is an epistolary novel? And which 18th century musical genres might be seen as exploiting similar temporal features? That is, responding either between an individual and a collective in very rapid succession, or amongst a group of equal contributors, again, responding through communication about musical ideas in terms of almost a conversation. So, looking for 2 responses to question 4. Number 1, what is an epistolary novel? So that's the first. And the second, which musical genres exploit similar features whereby the players are responding within very rapid time segments to the ideas that others are putting to them and that they convey to others. He then goes on to talk about the idea of the narrator as a first-person communicator. He talks about this in terms of diegetic isotopy. So isotopy we've covered. Diegesis is the Greek word for narrative. That's the word that Greeks use to understand narrative. He says it's fascinating in the 18th century to see stories being written whereby the teller and the tale gradually converge. In other words, the history that's told in the novel gradually converges with a sort of final statement that the teller wishes to make. He speaks about an Irish novelist, Lawrence Sterne, again in the 18th century, whose dates were 1713 to 68, who exploited these features for comic effect in his novel Tristram Shandy of 1759. And what he does is say, okay, I am now narrating this tale, but it's taken me so long to do it, it's really quite an eternity to actually get from the beginning to the end. And if this carries on, I'll never be able to finish my novel. So my question number 5 is this. We might think this is particularly strange and a feature peculiar to literature. And then we think about composers who may have used similar techniques. In other words, one composer above all, who liked the idea of musical jokes, musical irony. This composer wrote a Symphony No. 45 in F sharp minor in 1772. It acquired the name relating to the fact that players gradually leave the stage in the finale. So my question number 5, is this. Which composer composed that symphony, and what name did the symphony acquire as a result? Genette continues again talking about the act of narration, which he says we experience as a single event. In other words, the novelist doesn't do what Sterne comically portrays. In other words, the tale is just told. There is no reflection about the writing. There is no attempt to just assemble paper and ink and a pen and to plan things out. In other words, it's a finished entity that we are presented with. So my question number 6 is this one. That if through all of this it's the process of reading that creates the sense of coherence, nonetheless, question 6, which genre epitomizes the converging relationship between the teller and the tale? So which literary genre epitomizes the converging relationship between the teller and the tale? So this is towards the end of this particular section. As you'll notice, Genette likes to refer quite a bit to a very famous novel by Marcel Proust, French writer at the beginning of the 20th century, called In Remembrance of Things Past, which ends with the chief character about to sit down and write what seems to be the novel that we have just read. And we might think that's quite an elevated technique to use, but it was also the same technique used in 2011 in a film by Simon Pegg and Nick Frost called Paul, whereby, again, the movie we see is effectively the tale that is written by a science fiction aspiring writer who doesn't have confidence until he encounters the events that we actually see, but we realise in retrospect that that is the science fiction novel that he has just composed. So, 6 questions. Let me have your answers, and I hope that you'll find this useful. Apologies, as always, for the low production values. We'll find out if this is useful to you through trial and error. I hope it is, and I'll hopefully get better in trying to speak to camera and not continually look down at my notes. I can see why TV shows actually do use autocues now. Anyway, I will pass this on, and I'll hope to hear from you within, say, a day. So I'll look to a response coming back by 1 p.m. and that will be on Tuesday. So that'll be Tuesday the 24th, if you could let me have your responses as I've indicated in the email. Okay, thanks very much. Thanks for your patience, and I hope that we're actually gaining something from this and it's not completely artificial. It's bound to be to a large degree, but we'll do our best, I'm sure. Thanks again. Bye.